Good evening, everybody. We're going to get going very shortly. Just going to give it a couple of more minutes before we get going. I am live streaming on YouTube, so if you're just moving on to YouTube, you are welcome to join us in the live webinar room where you can ask questions. I'll put the link in there for you to register if you want to come and register. Other than that, I can't see the chat, but you're more than welcome to watch. So we'll get going in a couple of minutes. Thank you. All right, everybody, welcome to this evening's webinar, Live Forex Market Review, Identifying High Probability Trading Levels with ACY Securities. My name is Duncan Cooper. So before we move along, if you could just read through the disclaimer. Any questions as we're moving along, just put them into the question answer box. And I've got the chat box open too, but any questions would be great in the question box. All right, moving along. If you don't know me, my name is Duncan Cooper. I'm the Senior Market Strategist and Trading Mentor here at ACY Securities. And I've been full-time trading now for the best part of 15 years, mentoring clients for more than 10. If you want to contact me by email, you can get me at duncan.cooper@acy.com. And if you want to connect with me with my market analysis, you'll find it at the acy.com market news tab, ACY Security Australia YouTube channel. You can connect with me on Twitter and LinkedIn. I think I mentioned yesterday my Twitter account got suspended, but it's been unsuspended. It got hacked last week, so that's all back and working fine. Bit of a relief. There we go. All right, so you can connect with me via those 4 options as well. During the course of the week in our ACY Securities Telegram channel, I'm providing video analysis through the course of the days, based around the webinar series, talking about trends, support and resistance, key trading levels that we're watching. So you're more than welcome to get access to that. Just email Nathan Bray at acy.com. I'll put his details in the chat now, or in a moment or two, so you can contact him by email or phone. And just to let you know what's coming up, tomorrow evening, I'll be going through the figure as a webinar, that as a tool, and that will start at 7 p.m. Sydney time. All right. All right, let's just, let me just get this thing in the chat. So if you want to contact Nathan to get access to my chart layouts or access to the Telegram. Give you his phone number and email before we get going with the webinar. All right, there we go. All right, so my charts, I'm going to bring them up. They do look a bit different than the ones that you can just download from the ACY Securities website. So if you want to get access to my tools and layouts, then simply contact Nathan. He'll sort you out. Just on the Telegram that you can get access to as well. This is the Telegram. I've been posting some short videos, talking about the Aussie dollar, talking about the euro dollar, really talking about the key trading levels that I'm watching. And I was also posting about the dollar yen today as well. So these videos are about 2.5 minutes long, going through the components of what's happening on different time frames in the trend, support and resistance, and what I'm looking at. All right, so if you want to get access to that, just contact Nathan. So let's get to the charts. I just want to click through just to refresh myself what's going on the lower time frames. Just want to make sure there's nothing imminently setting up that we might want to talk about, or I might want to talk about the pound dollar. So I'll start on the pound dollar and I'll get to the ones that I normally go through. But day chart on the pound dollar here. Got a number of lines drawn in here, but yesterday's candle here came up to 131.68, which was monthly resistance here. And this line here, 131.34, back in time to the left on the weekly chart is weekly resistance. So we came up and failed at 131.68 and fell back below that weekly resistance. Today we're trading down to day support at 130.51. And I'm envisaging we might trade down to 130.100. So what I was just seeing there on the 15-minute chart, having that bounce up is we've got the figure here at 131 and we've got central pivot at 131.01. So it hasn't quite touched there yet and it may not touch there. So you need to make a decision as to you think that's a good intraday level of resistance to trade down from. But I'll be watching that level for failure. And because we failed at the 131.68 level earlier in the week, so Monday here, just there where my mouse is, failed at, it held here for quite a while yesterday, 131.34 weekly resistance. I'll be watching that level too intraday, just trying to fib across that range. And the 62% level overlaps with the M3 pivot too. So there are a few levels there as price is cycling back up, could hold the market for a move back down later in the day. Central pivot and the figure. We've got the M3 pivot 131.22 and the 62% retracement level there. And I would also watch 131.34. And as well, there's lots of levels here that could act as resistance today. So you can monitor these levels. 79% retracement with then a pivot up here as well. So 131.42 R1 pivot, 131.40, 79% retracement. So those are levels of resistance that the market could hold at. We had a very negative New York session yesterday when the Federal Reserve, or members of the Federal Reserve, were doing some talks or speeches, and they were saying that interest rates might be raising a lot quicker or in larger amounts, multiples of 0.5% rather than 25%. Sorry, multiples of 0.5% rather than 0.25%. So that gave US dollar strength. So I don't know if this will move too much past 131, but you'll need to monitor it and see how you want to get in. If you think any one of those levels are a good level. Pivot in 131 looks like an exceptionally good level. Just need, do you want to wait for a trend line break? Do you want to trade at the level? You need to make your own mind up how you want to get in, but that's a very good level, 130.100 there and central pivot. And my line my color-coded little box there should really be there on the figure and the pivot, which is 1 or 2 pips above the figure there. There we go. All right, that's the pound dollar. I just want to click through the rest, see what's going on. All right, I'll just start with the dollar index now and then work to the S&P 500 and then go through the pairs that I like to look at the moment. So dollar index is just moved up to a fresh high yesterday. Been very consolidatory. It's actually on the monthly chart here, been sitting on top of monthly support, 98.12. This is the weekly chart. So monthly trend is up and the weekly trend is up, been sitting on monthly support. Has made a fresh high this week after having an up and a down week last week. So still rather consolidatory, but it has pushed to a fresh high. So I can't say there's any change to a downtrend here at the moment. It's consolidatory to slightly up. So pairs to the US dollar, which should be slightly negative, generally speaking. All right. And what we're seeing on the S&P 500 is maybe we're topping out. We've moved down. We've moved back up, failed just short of the 79. And we could be moving down the track now. We've breaking below this high bottom, changing the trend. I think this is a lower top forming 2 here. So that's just starting to move into negative. And it's moving back below this weekly level of resistance, 45.29. So that's just turning negative. as the US dollar is gaining strength once more. All right. Okay, I just want to touch base on the dollar yen. And I covered this morning in a 2-minute video. And what I saw was, we just get rid of that fib first because we can't see anything with it on, is well, we've obviously had on the day chart here this meteoric rise, parabolic move almost. So on the monthly chart, we've come up, tested, traded through, and fell back below monthly resistance at 123.74. So that's where we're testing today in the new month. Weekly trend is up, but last week we had a rejection candle. We're right at that level right now. And what I was commentating on this morning was MACD is almost crossing down. If this starts to cross down, we're probably going to get a lower top forming. And is the lower top going to form at 123.74 monthly resistance? So we've had a meteorite rise, pull back to 121.28 support. Then we've obviously moved back up from that level, and the market is asking itself, can we move through here to challenge last week's high? Can we move even further up to challenge the next monthly resistance level? So last week's high was at 125.09. Or are we going to stall here? Obviously, at the moment, we've been a bit through and kind of at the level. So on the 4-hour, drawing just a fib tool across that rejection down. We're just a little bit over the 62 level there. So we start to see the 4-hour chart turn to negative, showing lower tops and bottoms. From this area, I'm suspecting it's starting to form a lower top on the daily chart. At the moment, price action on the 4-hour is still up. So if you're still to the buy side bias of this pair, you want to see this pair hold at 123.74. Personally, for myself, whilst I know on the day chart this is in an uptrend, it's so far up here, I really just can't get my head around buying it. So if I saw a signal to sell it, I'd be happy because it's so high up. But because it's so high up, being a buyer so high up just doesn't resonate with me. Of course, this could go up another 300 or 400 pips. I know it can go wherever it wants to, but I like to be, buying at support, selling at resistance. We could consolidate here, and support's at 121.28 at the moment. If we hold there, then I could contemplate being a buyer. But where it is at the moment, I don't think I can contemplate being a buyer. If I saw a signal to sell, I might look at selling down on a failure from 123.74 where we're trading at the moment, okay? All right, so just bear in mind the positioning of that dollar yen is at a resistance, rejected it last week, it's holding at resistance. If that goes negative, pairs to the yen potentially are going to follow suit, and some of the other pairs are testing similar resistance areas at the moment. All right, so they're highly correlated. All right, Aussie yen, just to the day chart. Well, I might actually go to my monthly chart just to show you where the lines are coming from. This line here at 94.31 is a weekly resistance level. Further up, 97.28 is the next monthly topic of challenge. And these two lines here are monthly levels. All right. So the question is, can we pull back to the monthly levels that we've broken above? Or are we just continuing up? So as I go through the time frames, we obviously had a rejection candle last week. Just going to take that line off for the moment. This line here is a weekly level of resistance. If you go back in time to your weekly chart, it's 92.68. So we rejected that last week. Of course, this week we've moved back above it. Trend is quite clearly up, but notably we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks up. Nothing goes up forever before it has weeks down. All right. So if something's 8 weeks up, do you want to be buying it in the 9th week or the 10th week? Surely, logically, you have to think that we're getting somewhere close to a top. I don't want to be buying the top. Now, I'm not seeing a signal quite yet to be a seller. We've got a higher bottom forming here. That line that I just took off was last week's high up there, 94.31. So today and yesterday, we weren't quite able to trade at 94.31 yet. And as well with the MACD, it's almost wanting to cross down. So if this crosses down like the dollar yen maybe crosses down as well, these look very similar, then we might see a lower top form on these pairs. So I'm just watching and waiting to see what it wants to do. To the 4 hour, structurally, it's still in an uptrend. But if we get a cross down on the MACD, this little support area here at 93.52, if we break below that, that's going to give you a negative bias, failing at a retest of last week's high, being up for 8 or 9 weeks, logically, we might be topping out. All right, so I'm not yet seeing a signal yet to sell, but we may well not test 94.31, and we may break 4 hour support. So 4 hour support is at 93.52. Of course, this could just be consolidating at the moment to push straight on and through. So if you're in a bought position from way back, then you're just holding your position. But if you're holding a position to the buy side, wherever you got in, if we break 4 hour support here, that's not good for the buyers. And we're obviously just consolidating here underneath 94.31. So the question is, can we move above 94.31? Can that become support for the market to move higher? Or are we topping out here? Are we going to break 4 hour support at 93.52? So if we do break 93.52, then there's a high chance we're going to move down to retest last week's low, monthly support here at 90.71. Okay, high chance if we break that support level. 15-minute chart, what we're seeing today, going to be going through the figure tomorrow in a webinar. Yesterday, we tried to move through 9,400, the figure. We did for a bit, but then came back below for the rest of New York. We held there in Asia. At the London Open, we managed to get through about 14 or 15 pips. And as you can see, we sunk back below 94. So quite clearly at the moment, sellers are just sitting above 94, taking the buyers on there. So yes, the trend's up. From a buyer's perspective, price pulling back to a central pivot point and holding, and then reversing back up, that would be a good level to trade up from. Just right now where it is, I wouldn't want to buy so close to the figure. So I need to pull back to at least a central pivot. See some support coming in there, then yes, if it turns around there, that could be an opportunity to be a buyer. For them, the market to potentially have a go at trading up through 94.31. Where it is right this minute, it's just in the middle of no man's land. It's just price action just failing at 94. So I'm not going to trade. I'm not going to be a buyer anywhere near 94. You might want to be a seller at 94, failing, because it's been failing there for the last almost 24 hours. All right, so quite clear the sellers are watching there. That 4 hour support area that I was just talking about before is that low just there on the 15 minutes. So what I'm actually contemplating looking for, we've actually had a move down like so to that level, pull back on the 4 hour like so. We've moved back up to there, kind of creating maybe a double top, time will tell. What I'd like to see is price breaks the midpoint, comes back up then for a rally to put in a lower top. Now, I'm going to have to wait probably a good 12 hours to see whether that can come to fruition, but that's fine. So I can have a look at that tomorrow. If that starts to fail that way, then I'll look to trade the reversal. But at the moment, for me to be a buy, it just needs to pull back a bit. Central pivot, first option. Aussie dollar. Now to the day chart. And these lines I've got on here, they're just weekly levels. All right, I could put some day levels in, but then I get too many levels just to talk about. So if you go to your weekly chart, yesterday we failed out just short of weekly resistance at 76.75. We haven't been there for a good 10 months or so, I don't think, something like that. And what we've done is, with the hawkish rhetoric yesterday from the RBA interest rate decision, even though we didn't put interest rates up, this was positive, broke above monthly high point here. So the monthly trend is up theoretically. So this is the day chart. Look, we had quite a rejection yesterday because we were all the way up at the top of that candle. So if you're a buyer, you got your buy hat on, or you're already bought and you're holding a position, then this monthly top here that we moved through yesterday. So Monday we tested it. Yesterday we moved through it. We did have a healthy rejection. Is if you're in a bought position, you want 75.55 to hold. Any pullback should be holding at 75.55. Buyers should be coming in and holding, because if we start to move back below 75.55, this is a false advance above that level. And if you get a false advance, often you can get a complete reversal down the range. So if you want to be a buyer, you need to see 75.55 hold for the next advance. So the 4-hour charts, it is actually holding. Today's low is at 75.61. So 6 pips ahead of that level, we've got a bit of support. I don't like the fact that this MACD's crossed down. I don't like the fact that there's a bit of negative divergence showing here to price action, lower top on the indicator, higher top on price. So that's just telling me that maybe momentum is running out ahead of that weekly resistance level. But that could be a false move. So that's a bit of a telltale worry sign for me. If I wanted to be a buyer, I wouldn't want to see that on the chart. However, it doesn't mean that price can't move up, but I think we might be in an area where we're going to get some selling pressure. And on the 15-minute chart, what I've noticed today, early Asia and then London, we don't want to get above the central pivot point. So yesterday we had a very healthy move up through Asia, London. Then the Fed members were very hawkish, pushing price action back down. Now, when we get large candles like that big one there, often price will come back to the starting point. There's your starting point. And today, we don't want to get above the central pivot point. We've covered pivot points this week. If we don't want to get above the central pivot point, we've tested it twice, then that area could be the high of the day. And then if it is going to be the high of the day, logically, it has to put in its low for the day. So then that gives it a downward bias at the moment from where price is sitting. So we could well come back to the point of the break. We could at least come back to 75.55. What does price do there? Does it hold a support? That's the first question. If it holds a support, then the buyers are in control. If it doesn't, we could see a scenario where we break below 75.55 monthly support / resistance. It becomes resistance once more, and then we see a decline using that level as a selling level for resistance. All right, so I'll just be watching 75.55. What is the market going to do there? Is it going to come down to it? At the moment, it's just a bit sideways, but it can't get above the central pivot. So can it come up off that level, or does it fail? All right, so it's a little bit of no man's land at the moment. It's not where I'd like to be a buyer. I'd like to see price really hit 75.55 and the buyers put the brakes on, turn it around. At the moment where it is, it's not giving me a trigger to do anything. All right, but what I am noticing, it can't get above the central pivot. And just above there's 76. So it could be the central pivot today. Tomorrow it could be 76 that acts as resistance for the market to start to turn over back to the downside. There's been a hawkish environment for the RBA early yesterday, and then a very hawkish environment for the US dollar. So it's kind of flip-flopped, I think. We may have been positive, strong advance, and now we may be turning the tide the other way. We'll have to monitor that. So watch 75.55 as support or resistance. Euro yen, just watching this on the sidelines at the moment. Today chart, these lines, I might go to my monthly chart. Can't go to my monthly chart because there's too many lines close together, but this is the weekly look. The line at the top is a monthly top that we're holding at. This one over here on the monthly chart. Then we've got a couple of monthly tops here that we're slightly above. So on the weekly, we're above 134.12 from this monthly top, and there's this monthly top here too, 133.47. All right, so those are key levels to watch for support. This next line here is a daily level. So to the daily chart, this higher level is this kind of support area the market's been forming on the pullback, 134.51. So 134.51 is holding the market at the moment. We did trade below it yesterday, but it's holding today. And seemingly we can't pull back to the monthly top at 134.12. So that's kind of positive that the buyers are coming in ahead of that monthly top. So support's coming in ahead of monthly support. The thing I don't like is just the fact that we've had this huge run up. If you have a huge run up, you know, normally if let's say using a fib tool, whether it's a huge run up or it's just a run up, you'd expect on a pullback a decline to the 62 level maybe. So trying to get my head around being a buyer here when a pullback, a normal pullback would be down here, doesn't sit quite well in my head. I can't make myself be a buyer here. Doesn't mean to say it's not going to be support and move up. It's just the way I'm looking at price action. So at the moment, 134.51 is kind of holding the market, that day support level. But if we get a close down, cross down that MACD, which it looks like, we get any form of a negative candle today, that will cross into tomorrow. So 4-hour chart look, just moving the 4-hour trend just up at the moment. All right, so it's just crossing up to up and the MACD is crossing up. So we might be getting a bit of a cycle up in the short term. All right. 50-minute chart. I'm not seeing anything that I like the look of. Now you're going to have to work it out yourself in terms of, are you still prepared to buy this pair after such a long run up? What I've been seeing over the last day and a half is price action through here has been resistance at 135 yesterday. And we went above, back below today. It's been resistance through Asia. And we've just obviously moved above. So if you want to get a tight intraday trade, you could be a buyer at 135 to trade up. That is in line with the trend at the moment. Or, you know, you might be thinking I'm more on the sell side. So you should be looking at 135. Is it acting as support or resistance? It's a key level right now with what price has been doing. It's been flip-flopping below and above. It was below in Asia. It's above in London. Is it going to hold at 135 to move higher? Or is it going to move back below and become resistance once more? So the thing that you might want to use to tell the tale for that pair is most of the yen pairs have been moving back up to their highs. This pair hasn't, and the euro dollar has been very negative. So if the euro dollar remains negative, starts to have a negative session, this will probably move below 135. Then you look for 135 to become resistance. If the euro dollar wants to continue to move up, you can look at 135 to be support in line with that 4-hour uptick that we're starting to see. Okay. But long term, I've got a sneaky suspicion we're going to start to move through these support levels. Okay, because this MACD is crossing down. So I'm just on the sidelines on that pair. All right, to the euro dollar, it's been having a bit of a price cycle up. I know early London, but this is in a downtrend. Now, yesterday we couldn't get up to the central pivot, and today it looks like the same. So this is very negative, this pair. So that's what I was saying about the euro yen. If this gets negative now, heading towards New York, euro yen will move back below 135. So to the daily chart, at the moment, last week we failed at 111.86 weekly resistance. Then we've had 1, 2, 3, 4 negative days down, broke below 109.61 and 109.45. Sorry, it's 109.61, 109.45 day support. Those levels got broken yesterday from here and here. And today we're testing day support at 109.00. All right, now, had more than a few days down. Wouldn't surprise me to see a day up or at least a bit more of a price cycle back up. But I'm expecting that 108.06 can get tested. Okay, in the short term. If I move to my weekly chart, this long-term monthly low back here, 106.35, I'm expecting that could get tested in the medium term. Over the next, I don't know, 2 or 3 months, we could, easily test 106.35. We're less than 300 pips away. We could test that this month, but I'm just being not too negative. I just think we could come down and retest 108.06, pairs in a downtrend, forming a new lower top on the weekly, and over time, logically moving down to that support low there. So getting out on this pair, on the 4-hour chart here, we're having a bit of a cycle back up short term on the last candle, bit of a bounce on the 10900 level, but I think when we get to the 15-minute chart, we're not wanting to get to the central pivot point. Now, in a perfect world for me, daily broken support 109.45 and the M3 pivot within a pip of 2 of each other would be a great level to trade down from if it could cycle back up to that level, but it might not be able to. So I'm just watching that area. 109.45 can price cycle back up. With it not getting to the central pivot, I'm feeling that maybe we could come back up to test the central pivot, but it's just looking very similar to what price did yesterday. Couldn't get up to the central pivot, put its high in for the day, and it was down all day. So that could be well the same story that's already happened, that it's already put in the intraday high for the day. So then what you could look for, let's say it doesn't go further up, look for 109, daily support at the moment, to become resistance to trade down from. Okay, that's what I'll be watching there. Pound yen daily chart, very similar to the other pairs. If you take it to the monthly, we rejected this monthly high over here, 163.06 last week, traded through quite a while, but rejected it come the end of the week, and some more resistance areas here. But the main level clearly is this historical top at 163.06 that we rejected. Trend is up though. Weekly trend is up. Big negative weekly rejection candle. So when you see a big negative weekly rejection candle, price will often come back up inside the candle, and this could come back up and retest 163.06, and then does it hold? Again, this is another pair that's had a massive run up. How far can it keep running before it has 1 or 2 weeks pullback? That will be the question in my mind. So at the moment, it's formed a high level of daily support here at 159.04. I've got monthly support here, 158.21, weekly support at 158.06. So we couldn't pull back to those levels. Higher bottom, moving back up. MACD almost wants to cross down, but it can't quite do it. At the moment, I just be watching what does it do if it can retest 163.06. What does it do then? Does it put in a lower top? All right, it's already too far up for me to be a buyer from forming the support area. So I just have to then bide my time. The 4-hour trend is up. It's a bit overdone on the 4-hour at the moment. This could maybe need a couple of 4-hour candles down before it wants to move further up. It is in an uptrend, so you could be looking for a continuation pattern, drawing a fib from low to high, waiting for a 62%, 79% retracement for the next upward move, heading towards 163.06. So I'm not seeing anything where you can get in at the moment. I don't like to just buy right now and hope that price continues moving up just because I bought. I like to trade some form of a setup. So for me, I'm on the sidelines on this pair, but I would be interested to see what it does on a retest at 163.06. Is that where we can hold and put in a lower top maybe? You know, this pair's run up. Doesn't look a lot on this chart at the moment. That's 1,370 pips. It doesn't normally do that in a month. So it is overextended. I'm not sure whether that pullback it's had has lessened the overextent at the moment. Maybe this wants to put in a lower top at some point. All right, pound dollar. We've covered this one already. Starting to show a little bit of failure price action there at the figure and the central pivot point. That could well be where the high of the day is forming. You can make your mind up if you're trading today, whether you want to engage there. All right, getting to the New Zealand pairs. Monthly chart for New Zealand yen, it's clearly in an uptrend, and it's clearly holding like the other yen pairs at monthly resistance or at weekly resistance on, I think, the Aussie yen. But monthly resistance from over here could be a short-term stopping point, 96.40. Trend is up. Like some of the other pairs, this has had 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9 weeks up. It's due a week or two down. Slav, you got your hand up. If you want to ask me a question, go ahead. So it's coming up for a retest of that monthly level, 86.40. And I'm just going to pause there. It's going to go back to the pound dollar. So on the pound dollar here, Slav, what I've been looking at is I've drawn a fib from yesterday's high to the current low. And that's really not in the field of vision there. I don't really need to talk about that, where price is. Price at the moment is pausing at the central pivot and the figure. So I've got two intraday resistance tools that the market might stop at today and want to move down from. So as I said yesterday in the pivot point webinar, the central pivot point can often be the high of the day if you're having a very negative trend on the day chart, which we are. So potentially central pivot point here in the figure could be where the high of the day comes in. I've also highlighted some other areas, some overlaps, pivot points and the 62% level, pivot point and the 79% level as possible intraday resistance levels that the market might fail at if it wants to move higher. But at the moment, so in the last 3 candles, price is kind of maybe wanting to hold here at the 130-100 level and the central pivot. I'm going to cover the figure levels, the 100 numbers tomorrow in the webinar. So that is a key intraday resistance area that the market could be holding at to move down from today. So if you're trading, you just need to work out, do you like that level to trade down from? Do you want to wait for a trend line break from that area to confirm a change in trend on the 15-minute chart? All right, so that's what I was covering there, Slav. All right, moving back to New Zealand yen. So as I was saying, last week we rejected monthly resistance after having, 9 weeks up. Logically, I'm thinking, how many more weeks can it go up before having a pullback? So I can't buy something that's had 9 weeks up. I need to buy in the first 2 weeks of it moving up. So I'm just waiting to see if we can start to put in a lower top on the day chart, which we've put in a higher bottom. MACD has crossed down, so that's weakness starting to show now on the time frame. Do we have a day, do we hold here today, have a day down tomorrow, start to form a lower top? If we do, then we could start to see this cycle back down the range, or at least come back to retest. The newly formed day support at 84.24. And does it break that level? Does it move back down the range through the levels that it's moved through over the last 2 or 3 weeks? Now, of course, this can just keep moving up with this parabolic move that we've been having. But just for me, I can't be a buyer so far up. I would kill myself if I bought on the 9th week up and then next week it goes down because I've just bought the top. So I need to be buying. I always need to be buying to hold a position for the long term in the early phase of the move. This is the latter end of the move, right? It's not told us that the move's finished yet. It's just got signs that it may be finishing. This was a clear rejection candle on the daily, and a clear rejection on the weekly. We're retesting that area. Do we have a day down tomorrow? That will start to confirm a reversal if we do. All right, so I'm just watching for a reversal. New Zealand dollar. This was very positive yesterday after the RBA decision. Highly correlated with the Aussie US dollar. And then it was very negative in the New York session, coming down here on the 15-minute when the Fed members were being very hawkish. So to my daily chart, this fib's drawn across my monthly range. The monthly chart here is lower top to lower bottom having a rally. I'm just wondering, are we putting in the lower top at some point? Weekly trend is going to be showing to be up, but for the last 3 weeks, we've been struggling at the 62% retracement area here of that range. And I've got this daily level of old support and resistance. Support, resistance was support we broke below. Last week and the week before, we put in some highs here at that level. Say other wicks though, we're rejecting that level. There's no close above that area. Yesterday, we had a full blue on candle at one point, looking very positive. But by the end of the day, it wasn't looking very positive, was it? So any movement back up to these high points, 69.88, 69.98, so almost 70, the 70-100 level. Or up to 69.82, this support resistance area. If this price comes back up to here and starts to fail once more, this could be your last chance maybe to get on board at the top of this peak. I know it's showing you high tops and bottoms, but it's maybe showing a topping out process here. All right, so MACD's crossed down already. Big rejection candle at resistance. We closed below the 62% fib. What we might see is a rally on the 4-hour chart, which is now down, move to a lower point. This could cycle back up. 62 levels at 69.91. All right, watch the 62 level. Watch that 69.82 long-term support resistance level I drew in, and the price points of these tops here. I could draw those in and then see where it lines up with the fib. 69.88. Sorry, I've got the wrong tool there. $69.88 is the next number. So 69.88, 69.98, those two levels. Back to the 4-hour, and the 62 is plumb in the middle of those areas of resistance. See it clear on the 15. There's the 62, there's those two levels of resistance. So that whole area there could act as good resistance on any retest. That could happen today, could happen tomorrow. We have to get above the central pivot point yet. So if this wants to remain very negative from that very negative move yesterday, we might not even get above the central pivot point. So just looking to see where maybe price can fail. All right, could get up to 70, the 70-100 number over the next 24 hours. So watching between 69.88 and up to 70-100. What does price do? Does it move in, fail, and start to want to move back down? Because this could be where we start to top out for the long term on the New Zealand dollar, putting in a lower top on the monthly chart. Okay. All right. So that's those are the pairs I'm watching at the moment. Any questions, anybody? I'm just going to click through, see what's going on from when I last touched on these pairs. So dollar yen is moving back above and below that 123.74 level at the moment. Not quite, you know, I'd love to see it break hard back below 123.74, put in the lower top on the day chart, but it's just managing to find some support there in the short term. Aussie yen, it could be failing at 94. Currently trading at 93.83. So if you want to be aggressive, if this does come up for another touch of 94 and holds, you could maybe be looking to sell at 94, stop at 94.20. A small stop with the potential of a large move to the downside if we're topping out at the 94 level. So we always have to look at when you're taking a trade, can you get in with a small stop, but does the opportunity offer you great risk reward? So just 20 pips risk could offer you the opportunity to maybe trade back down to last week's low point. That's 320 pips away for a 20 pip risk. So that's a risk reward of 1:16. All right. That's how you can get great risk reward. So I don't know if it's going to be failing there yet, but today it's failing at 94. So if you traded at 94 today already, you could actually be risk-free. You could go, look, I'm getting my trade to break even. And if it comes back up, no harm, no foul. All right. At the moment, though, it's not doing too much there, just holding below the 94 level. Aussie is very quiet. Euro yen is still getting support at 135. And I have already mentioned that we have some very hawkish news from the Federal Reserve members. If I go to Forex Factory, there we go. What you're going to see is that we do have the FOMC meeting minutes coming out in the morning, my time, 4 o'clock in the morning. So market might be a little bit slow going before then. With the hawkish news coming out from 2 of the Federal Reserve members yesterday, being very hawkish, then I'm anticipating that those meeting minutes will be of the same kind of rhetoric. I don't think they're going to be less hawkish. They're probably on the same vein that they were talking about yesterday. So I don't think that's going to give us any more hawkish news than what we've already had yesterday. But that is coming out in the morning. So we might see that price action might just want to stay a little bit quieter while it waits for that event to come out, just the release of those meeting minutes. All right. All right. Don't know whether that euro dollar can get up to the central pivot or up to 109.45 now. It's just looking a little bit like it may have put in its high for the day. You can monitor that. 3 candles rejecting there at the central pivot. I discussed that yesterday about pivot points, that 3 candles there were trading above a pivot, but not really holding above it. It's acting as resistance. So with that forethought, you could have been trading at the central pivot, 131.01. It's currently trading at 4 pips down from that level. So as I was saying yesterday, you could trade at that central pivot, acting as resistance with a stop 20 pips above. And if it moves back down to the low of the day, which is 55 pips away, that's a risk reward of at least 1 to 2.5. And if it breaks the low, you're going to get a risk reward of maybe 1 to 3 or 4. All right. That's how you can get good risk reward. So it's not always a question of being right. It's a question of knowing what levels you could trade at to create good risk reward and if you get a positive outcome, you get good risk reward. It's not about trading to try to be right every time, because when you put a trade on, you've got no idea whether the trade will win or lose. It's a question of having an edge that will work well for you in the market, and the fact that you can set up a good risk reward as well. And then, yes, sometimes you're going to be right and sometimes you're going to be wrong. But when you're right, you need a good risk reward. When you're wrong, you don't want to lose too many pips. So if you can set it up so that you risk 20 pips, but you could maybe make 60 pips if you're right, lose 20 when you're wrong. If your hit rate is 50-50, then you're going to make pips, aren't you? So it's not really a question of trying to be right. If you're trying to be right all the time, I don't know whether you can trade, because you can never be right all the time. You just have to accept that you're going to be wrong sometimes, but can you have an edge in the market that will potentially work at least 50-50, be able to create good risk reward, targets that can be met, and then off you go. So I've showed you a couple of opportunities there tonight that could offer good risk reward. Do I know whether they're going to work or not? No, because the market's always right. You just need an edge that can be right at least 50% of the time. All right, everybody, any final questions while I'm waiting for a question or two or not? Just to let you know what's coming up tomorrow. And for those that may be on our YouTube stream, if you want to join us in the live webinars, simply come to our webinar page. Tomorrow, I'm going to go through what is the figure. That's the 100 numbers, which we've been touching on today. So I'll just hop over here and register if you want to come along to that. Next Tuesday, I'm going to go through Fibonacci. Next Wednesday, live trading once more. And next Thursday, MACD. All right, I've got a question coming in. So Slav, you say, can I elaborate more on the upcoming FOMC meeting? Well, it's not a meeting, I don't think, unless I read it wrong. I think it's just the meeting minutes. So it's the FOMC meeting minutes. It's not the meeting itself. It's the minutes from the meeting. So last month when they increased interest rates, they would have had a meeting to decide that. They would have had a conversation about things that they deliberated to come to that decision, and that will be in the meeting minutes. And what people do is they look at the meeting minutes from one month to the next, and they generally discuss the same things and almost put the exact same wording in for the same topics. And what they do is look at to see whether the wording should change from one meeting to another. So I'm not going to get up at 4 o'clock. I'll be asleep. So I've got no idea what will come out in the meeting minutes. I'm just thinking from the rhetoric that came out from the speeches from the Federal Reserve members yesterday, saying that they may be wanting to raise interest rates quicker or more aggressively than just by 0.25 base points, more like half a base point at a time, then I'm expecting that the meeting minutes will probably say the same. And that positivity, that hawkishness that was in the market yesterday has probably been factored in to a great extent. So we could well see a further decline of the pairs versus the US dollar, so more US dollar strength. So that's what I'm generally expecting. But the meeting minutes could be not as hawkish as what the Fed members were saying yesterday, but it's really going to say why they raised interest rates. And I think the market pretty much already knows that in general terms. So I don't know whether that's going to be too much of an event. If it was the actual meeting where they say what they're doing, raising interest rates or not, then for sure we'd have fireworks when it came out. All right. All right, Aussie yen is just having a bit of a bid. Obviously, is it going to hold at 94 again? Or is it going to move through? Problem about, you being a buyer here at 94 or close to is you're only 31 pips away from last week's high. So your profit potential, getting a good risk reward. I know the trend is up here. But it could maybe just be falling slightly, but the trend is up, but you don't have a lot of room left before you meet last week's high. If you're a buyer yesterday or the day before and you're in a position, then you can be holding this and tightening your stops. Like I was saying, I'm looking for a break at this level to change the trend. About the 93.52 area, you could be, just moving your stop up at the moment, just below the last 4-hour support level here. As long as the 4-hour chart trend remains up and puts in a new high, it won't take you out. But if we break that level, that's going to start to put that immediate trend in a different picture. But just getting into a new trade where it is, I don't think is the best position. But you have to decide what you want to do. All right, everybody, that's my analysis for today and the levels I'm watching. Some of the pairs are a bit in awkward positions at the moment. So if they're awkward, you'll just have to wait until they look less awkward Might not look awkward for you. You might be happy with their positioning. For me, some of those yen pairs are just a little bit awkward. I just need a bit more information. I don't know, if a yen pair's been moving up 9 weeks, how many more weeks can it go before it tops? I really wouldn't be happy with myself buying at the top, but it could just keep going up for the next 2 months. Obviously, these yen pairs have been very parabolic and they're in a trend until they're not. It's just a matter of how comfortable you are at buying such high levels. All right, so with that in mind, thanks very much for attending this evening. Hopefully you got some good levels there to watch within your own trading, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.